By the end of this video, you will know why Rome Odunze of the Chicago Bears is set up for both short-term and long-term success, especially long-term success, and is going to dominate the NFL as an X receiver in the Bears offense. We're going to go over his strengths, weaknesses, as well as his low, median, and high-end outcomes as a receiver. So, Rome Odunze is 6'3", 212 pounds, with 65th percentile arm length, and is 22.2 years old as a redshirt junior. So he isn't an early declare. He did play 4 seasons at the University of Washington. I'm going to go over why I am not worried in any way, shape, or form about his NFL future. When we look at his workout metrics, his 4.45 40-yard dash is in the 80th percentile. Now think about that. He's 6'3", 212 pounds, running a 4.45 40-yard dash. That is very impressive. And how you know that's impressive is if you look at his speed score, his 111.1 speed score is in the 94th percentile. 94th percentile. That is height and weight adjusted. Then you look at his burst score. His 128.3 burst score, which is his vertical and broad jump, is in the 83rd percentile. But wait, there's more. When you look at his agility score, his 10.91 grade was in the 86th percentile. But it gets even better. His catch radius of 10.39 is in the 97th percentile. This guy is all around dominant and possesses every single thing that we look for in a wide receiver in terms of athleticism. And might I add, this is the profile of a dominant number 1 X receiver. So when we look at Dynasty rookie drafts, this is in a Superflex format as well as a 12-team format. So when we look at the 101, which you can't see, it's going to be Caleb Williams. Then 102 is Marvin Harrison Jr. That's pretty standard. In a 12-team league, though, I could definitely understand wanting Jaden Daniels ahead of him if you really, really need a quarterback and you can't trade down, or you are scared that the guy at 3 is just going to take Jaden Daniels. So then we have Malik Neighbors at 3. So I definitely understand. I love him as a talent. He's incredibly skilled. I will say, though, I think that there is some potential for him to get Garrett Wilson. But at the same time, in a worst-case scenario, if he is Garrett Wilson, he's still going to be a wide receiver 3 for you. In a 12-team format, I would rather have Jaden Daniels at 3 because when there's 12 teams, all 12 teams can't have 3 starting quarterbacks. So I would probably take Jaden Daniels there. But then it's up to Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze. I think that when we think about the short-term situation, Malik Neighbors is going to receive more volume. However, we really don't know when or if they're going to get a good quarterback. Who knows if the next quarterback they draft is going to be any good? So while I think that he's an incredible talent, I think that Rome Odunze is going to have a lot more guaranteed upside. Even though, as I'm going to discuss in a little bit, his short-term situation is a little bit crowded, I'm going to go into a couple of reasons why I think that he is absolutely set very soon. Then we have Brock Bowers going off the board. It's really unfortunate. He landed in just about the worst situation imaginable for him. They already have a pretty good tight end in Michael Mayer, even though he's definitely going to be the tight end 1, obviously. They have a number 1 established wide receiver in Devontae Adams. They have terrible quarterback play, a defensive-minded head coach. It was a pretty bad situation for him, but he's really talented, and I'm sure he's going to be fine. Then you have Drake May going off the board at pick 7. I think Drake May, in a 12-team format, I would rather have Drake May than Brock Bowers. And if I needed a third quarterback, I would probably take him over Odunze and Neighbors, honestly, because the ability to have 3 starting quarterbacks on your roster in a 12-team format is really, really, really valuable. In a 10-team format, I could absolutely understand taking any of these guys, especially if it's a tight end premium in regards to Brock Bowers of 0.75 or more. If it's only a 0.25 or 0.5 tight end premium, the value of starting them, for instance, in a flex spot is not as high as if it's a 0.75 or full point tight end premium. If it's a full tight end premium, I personally am in one of those leagues and I start 2 elite tight ends. It gives me such a positional advantage. But anyways, so Rome Odunze is currently going as the 5th overall pick in a 12-team format. As I said, it just depends on your specific needs as a team and whether or not you would be able to trade down and then still get someone like Odunze or Neighbors, or if you're just kind of stuck and you just got to take who you need for your team because it's not going to benefit you to have a surplus of something if there's no trade market. So when we look at Rome Odunze as to where he's going in dynasty startups compared to other wide receivers, he's being drafted currently as the wide receiver 15 at the 404. So he's going below the likes of Jalen Waddle and Brandon Ayuk and above Michael Pittman Jr. and Devontae Smith. I think this is pretty fair. Jalen Waddle, while he is the wide receiver 2 in Miami, remember that he did have a wide receiver 8 finish in 2022. He dealt with injuries this past season. So while he is a number 2 wide receiver, he does have the potential to be a top 10 wide receiver. He's already done it with Tyreek Hill there. Then Brandon Ayuk, and then obviously Rome. So then after him is going Michael Pittman Jr. I do think that Michael Pittman Jr.'s value is a little bit inflated. Anthony Richardson is very, very good at scoring fantasy points. However, in terms of his accuracy, it definitely isn't the best. Now it could get better, and Michael Pittman Jr. is going to be the undisputed number 1 target in that Shane Steichen offense. I just think that his wide receiver 13 finish this past season probably isn't repeating. Then you have Devontae Smith. I definitely would rather have Rome Odunze than Devontae Smith, and I'd rather have him than Michael Pittman Jr. as well. So I think he's going appropriately in dynasty startups, and I think you could probably debate him going over Brandon Ayuk and potentially Jalen Waddle. Although what I will say is for the short term, both of those wide receivers are going to be better for helping you win a fantasy championship. It's more so also your roster construction plays into this. If you are going for the punt approach, for instance, I would much rather have Rome Odunze because he's obviously younger than both of them and is set up for a good amount of long-term success. But if you are looking for win-now production, obviously Rome, as we'll learn, is not going to be the ideal candidate for you here. But like I said, it's debatable and it's really up to your roster construction. So it had been known for a little bit before the NFL draft that Rome Odunze was very likely to be a top 10 pick. I know Daniel Jeremiah was really, really high on him, as well as Matt Harmon at Reception Perception and Yahoo. So a couple of people that I do trust in general in terms of their wide receiver evaluations really liked him. And from what I've seen on film, I think that he was absolutely worth a top 10 pick. And so he goes inside the top 10, which historically, as you're about to see, is very, very good for hit rate. So when we look at historical hit rates from 2010 to 2023, we see that among top 10 selected wide receivers, 27.3% of them are superstars. That means that they are an elite wide receiver 1. Then 22.7% are studs. That just means a wide receiver 1. Wide receiver 2s make up about 4.5% of them. Wide receiver 3s make up about 9.1%. Then you have 9.1% are also brief values, as well as 27.3% of them are busts. So you have about a 25% bust rate in the hit rates from 2010 to 2023 among the top 10 selected wide receivers. I will say, though, some of that is affected by obvious reaches. If you remember, John Ross, for instance, is an example. Somebody that was just really, really fast and, in my opinion, just didn't make any sense to be selected that high. So that is influenced by really irrational, dumb picks. But the stats are still the stats. So looking at the historical hit rates, there is a 50% chance that this guy is either a wide receiver 1 or an elite wide receiver 1. So if you like what you're hearing, feel free to like and subscribe. I upload every single day, and if you like videos like these, you'll like what I have to say in the future. So when we look at Rome Odunze against 125 qualified Power 5 wide receivers from 2022 to 2023, his PFF receiving grade of 89.9 was good for 4th. His passer rating when targeted of 119.2 was good for 19th. His 2784 total receiving yards was good for 1st. His receiving touchdowns, 20, was good for 9th. His yards per route run of 2.74 was good for 8th. His yards per reception of 16.7 was good for 13th. and his targets per route run rate of 24.6 was good for 40th. So one thing to contextualize here is his targets per route run rate is going to be a little bit lower because he had a second round and third round wide receiver on his team. So it makes it a lot easier to have an incredibly high targets per route run rate when you are by far the most talented wide receiver and the only talented receiver on your team. He definitely was the most talented wide receiver on this 2023 Huskies team. But making it out like, oh, he's only 40th because he's not very good would be extremely disingenuous. So when we take a look at a couple of stats underneath here, his receiving grade was 81st percentile. His separation percentage was 78th percentile. His yards per route run was 73rd percentile. His average depth of target was 73rd. However, his yards after catch per reception was only good for 37th. I will argue that that is a combination of two things. He definitely isn't the most impressive yards after catch guy there is. That's just not the best part of his game. But he was also receiving extremely deep shots down the field, as is evidenced by his 73rd percentile average depth of target. If he was getting a ton of screens or something, obviously that's specifically set up and schemed for you to get yards after catch. So it is important to contextualize that. But in terms of his skills as a wide receiver after the catch, he's more of a brute force after the catch. He's very good at breaking tackles. He's just not necessarily going to juke you out of your shoes. But there is a lot to like about him, and his 88.8 receiving grade when lined up out wide was the number one among all of these wide receivers, thus giving us the idea that this guy is going to be a pretty good X wide receiver. But he also has positional versatility because he can also be a flanker. So a couple of stats that you'll like: he had 3.07 yards per out run against man coverage this past season, as well as 2.52 against zone. Those are both fantastic marks. So this is what I've been really wanting to show you. Look at his success by route percentage in 2023. All green means above average. This guy is above average in success rate with every single route that he runs. Look at that. By the way, this is the first all green route tree that Matt Harmon has ever recorded for a collegiate prospect. That is how good this guy is at winning. Because not only can he get open via separation, he will dominate you at the catch point, so it really doesn't matter if he's covered or not. But besides that, he's very, very good. He is smooth. He glides with his routes. So as you can see, no matter where you deploy him on the field and no matter what route you want him to run, he is going to be successful. So when we look at the Bears depth chart, it's star-studded. First of all, they have first overall pick, Caleb Williams. This guy is full of traits of Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, and he blends them together. He does have some downside to him, potentially, which I'll go over with you in a minute. Then they have an above-average pass-catching running back in DeAndre Swift. He's a fine rusher of the football, too, but he looks for the big play too much. He likes to bounce everything outside. Unfortunately, if you do that all the time, people picked up on those tendencies. Then you have DJ Moore. He's best used as a flanker in this offense. He can play X and he can play in the slot, though. Keenan Allen is best used as a flanker, but you could throw him at X, and he's the best in the slot. And then you have Rome Odunze. He's going to be best used as an X receiver, but you can throw him at flanker or in the slot as well. So the way I see this working out is I do think that Rome Odunze is going to be on the field in two wide receiver sets when they run 12 personnel. Because if you notice, they have Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett down there. What we've seen in the preseason is they have been running a good amount of 12 personnel. That's going to help the run game get going and take a little bit of the load off of Caleb Williams. Although I don't think that's their most effective formation per se. I think they're much more dangerous with three wide receivers. So like I said, Rome Odunze, I project to be the starting X receiver. You can throw DJ Moore or Keenan Allen there. But Rome is 6'3". He is built to be an X receiver. So I do think he's going to be there. I think in two wide receiver sets, DJ Moore is going to be the flanker. Then I think Keenan Allen is going to come in on third downs or just whenever they want to run 11 personnel. They're going to be explosive. So then you have the downside. He's probably not going to be anywhere close to the most targeted receiver in the NFL. He could potentially even be the third most targeted wide receiver on this team. However, even if he is the third most targeted wide receiver, I do think there's going to be much less of a disparity between the three. Rome Odunze and Shane Waldron's offense being brought from Seattle to Chicago. He projects to be the best fit for the DK Metcalf role, which he is very suited for. So I do think that there's a very good chance he receives right around the same amount of targets as these other players, and I don't think he's going to get JSN this season. So I don't really have any stats from Caleb Williams. He's a rookie. But when we look at this play, you'll notice that he rolls out to his left, shows good pocket presence, shows tremendous athleticism to be able to throw while running to the left as a right-handed quarterback, while jumping in the air, providing an insane amount of torque, and then pinpoint accuracy 40-plus yards down the field to Rome Odunze. Then for Rome Odunze, he sees that Caleb Williams is rolling out left, so he heads straight down the field. He knows exactly where to go, and they both connect on an amazing play. This shows off Rome Odunze's ability to be an improvisational weapon for Caleb Williams, as well as his ability to win downfield and at the catch point. You are going to see a lot of this. One thing I've noticed is Caleb Williams, when things aren't going well for him in structure, or he just doesn't want to stick to structure, and he starts to improvise, Rome Odunze appears to be his favorite target for that. And if you've watched any analysis or done your own analysis of Caleb Williams, you'll notice that he does not tend to stick to structure quite as often as you might like. So what you can expect is a good amount of this. So if he's able to be the starting X receiver in two wide receiver sets, you can expect that between that and when they're running 11 personnel, you're going to see a good amount of that this season. So I'm going to show you some highlights while I read off some notes I've made about Rome Odunze. So in summary, Rome Odunze is a 6'3" and 212 playmaker, capable of dominating from the slot, as a flanker, and at the X position in a traditional X wide receiver's body. He has 80th percentile speed, a 94th percentile speed score, an 83rd percentile burst score, an 86th percentile agility score, and a 97th percentile catch radius. He figures to spend most of his time at X for the Bears, and he had an 88.8 grade from PFF when he lined out wide this past season, first in the country and above the likes of MHJ and Neighbors. He figures to not give you quite as much immediate win-now production as you might expect, but that is likely to end as soon as partway through the season and almost certainly after the season. Keenan Allen is on a one-year deal, and at 32 years old, historically he doesn't have much time left before he should show clear signs of regression. Rome is connected to Caleb Williams, who has some of the best pocket presence I've ever seen from a collegiate prospect, as well as top 3 arm talent rivaling that of Mahomes and Allen in terms of his ability to get the ball where he wants, whenever he wants. He has already shown an affinity with Rome on plays where Williams has to or chooses to improvise, and figures to be Caleb's best red zone option in the passing game. He is a fantastic runner of the fade route. He is also the first wide receiver in Matt Harmon's grading scale to ever receive an all-green route tree in terms of his success rate. He excels at contested catches and regularly mosses cornerbacks. His biggest weaknesses are that he is merely average after the catch and doesn't get the best separation on film. The trump card he possesses to offset the separation aspect of his game is that he is too physically dominant for it to matter, although he is once again average at separation, so it really isn't even a weakness per se. He is also set up with what projects to be an elite quarterback for many years, and Caleb has already shown his ability to get the ball to Rome down the field. Overall, he is a high ceiling, high floor player, and I would be absolutely shocked if he busts. It would have to be due to injury. So my low-end comp for Rome Odunze is Allen Robinson, somebody who is an X wide receiver, is very, very good at catching the ball, very good through contact, and is generally an above average X receiver. I think that is probably the worst that he could possibly be. He is too physically dominant, smooth with his routes, good at basically everything he does to be anything worse than that. Once again, barring any injuries. So my median comp for Rome Odunze is a taller, more physically dominant Chris Olave, who is also a little bit better after the catch. So the thing that is most similar between them is how smooth they are in their routes. Very, very good in and out of breaks. So the biggest difference is obviously he's taller than Chris Olave, and that makes him a much better red zone threat when you add in the fact that he runs a good fade route, is incredible at the catch point, and is just incredibly physically dominant. And then he is a little bit better after the catch, and that he breaks more tackles. He doesn't just go down, essentially. But like I said, Chris Olave is a very good wide receiver. So I think if he does hit that median outcome as a more physically dominant, taller Chris Olave that's a little bit better after the catch, I think you have a perennial low-end wide receiver 1, which is fantastic. Then if he hits his max upside, my high-end comp for him is a taller and faster Davante Adams. They are both incredibly technically proficient with their routes. They are physically dominant at the catch point. They are traditional X wide receivers. They have a very good release package. Really, he has traits of all three of these wide receivers I mentioned. And if he is able to hit the high-end comp I have for him, he is going to be a perennial all-pro and a stud elite wide receiver 1, especially when you add in the fact that he's going to be receiving passes from Caleb Williams. It's a lot easier to be an elite wide receiver 1 when, first of all, you're elite, but then second of all, you have somebody that's capable of actually getting you the ball. That's how you get Garrett Wilson, for instance, or Drake London, Kyle Pitts. And so since he does have Caleb Williams, I think it is much more likely that he hits the Davante Adams comp than the Allen Robinson comp. But what do you think? Do you agree with my comparisons? Do you agree with my assessment of Rome Odunze in terms of his strengths and weaknesses? What do you think about him? Let me know in the comment section below. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a good day.